Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tried and True, a podcast hosted by Delaware War Machine. I am your host, Paul.
And I'm Erica.
Erica, congratulations. I just got done listening to the Primecast 14 and got to hear that you got to be on that, so that was pretty cool. Awesome stuff.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. Thanks again, Emmanuel, for inviting me on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. How's things been at the shop and getting ready for Boker Brawl?
It's good. So Broker Brawl is falling in line with WTC, so we all had to quickly revamp our list from 75 to 100. So it's been larger point games, and we're just trying to get in the headspace for that.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We have list lock, what is it, in like 2 weeks from now? Like the 14th or something?
The 14th. Yep, that's correct.
Oh, man. I am so excited about playing some Retribution on the table. Well, let's go ahead and give you a couple shout-outs. I thank you to More Than Dice for giving us another platform for spreading the good stuff. You can go ahead and check out more of their content creators like Boker Broadcast and Minority Report. There's lots of good stuff to go and listen to. If you haven't known or you didn't know about it, we are on YouTube. We just hit 1.2 thousand subs, so thank you so much. Looking to drive that number up and, trying to spread the good word of War Machine out to everyone out there. And to all of our patrons on Patreon, thank you so much for your support. With all of your assistance and your support, you're helping us being able to create some more top of the line stuff for all the War Machine players around the world. So thank you so much. And if you didn't know, you could join the Patreon by taking a look at the show notes down below. We also wanted to highlight our sponsorship for today. It's Tabletop Armory Tried True 10. That is Tried True 10. You go ahead and use that and you'll save yourself 10% on your orders. We ended up talking out there and found out that a lot of people have been ordering whether the templates or the widgets, and it's been really, really good stuff. I'm telling you, you haven't been to the Etsy shop, Tabletop Armory, you'll find lots of good stuff.
Oh, really quick too, because we bumped into Tabletop Armory and Ron at AdeptiCon. They have some really cool jack markers. So if you don't have cards or if you don't want to track the damage on your phone, I actually picked them up for the Great Bear and the Dire Wolf. They're really cool. So they have some Mark IV stuff and wooden command cards. Those things are pretty hot.
That is awesome. I'm going to have to go and hit that shop up again. All right, well, let's go ahead and introduce the guests. So we have a couple of fun people on for today, so let's go ahead and introduce the local to begin with. We have Rick. Now, if you end up taking a look at, if you were at AdeptiCon and you hung out with the Tried True folks, Rick was there, and he's one of the local players here. So, Rick, go ahead and say hello.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Rick, how about you just go ahead and quickly introduce yourself, like how long you've been playing War Machine, and, what got you into the game, and all that other fun jazz.
Oh, yeah, sure. So I've been playing since probably, I want to say, midway Mark II when I got into it. Just had a local guy from when I was in Maryland. Just gave me a whole bunch of Signar because he needed somebody to play with. So I got started there and playing ever since. Definitely been playing Signar for a long time. Forever. And then I actually just recently got me in some dwarves, so we're going to see how those guys go here pretty soon.
That's great. And you also end up picking up the Storm Legion as well?
Oh yeah, so if it has Signar on it at all, I'm playing it. So if it's First Army, Storm Division, Storm Legion, I'm there. Sorry, not sorry.
It's all right, it's all right. And then we also have another guest with us. We have Mike from Nova. Mike, go ahead and say hello.
Hey, I'm Mike from Nova. Haha! I am one of the new owners of Nova, and I have been playing War Machine since Mark 1. How about that?
Show
But
off.
It's okay. It was one of my first minis games, actually, that and Warzone. But I actually did not play in Mark 3. I just started playing Brawl Machine when Mark 4 dropped, so I am orphan right now. But I played Scorn, and I have a whole bunch of Cephalix sitting right in front of me right now, waiting to be relevant in some way. Help me.
I think Cephalix are getting rules by July, right? I think
they are. Yep, they are getting rules by July. The recent Primecast 14 that literally just came out today, and on the day of the recording, it's April 6th right now. Yeah, they end up saying, so what is it? At the end of this month, we're getting Guardians of the Temple Flame and Black Fleet. May is Winter Guard and Storm Division. June, I'm excited because it's my two armies, Mage Hunters and Exalted, and then Cephalix and Krail Warriors is in July. So all the Prime armies are going to be ready by the summer, which is great. That is super great news.
So, at the risk of going down the rabbit hole, one thing I had read is that telekinesis is no longer like a functional thing. That was a big part of Cephalix. What do you think will happen with that?
So how telekinesis works now is that if I remember, I don't have any TK casters that I'm playing right now, but I think Scavras has it, and isn't he can only do it like to friendly players?
Yeah,
Erica?
so TK, yeah, it only affects friendly models, no longer enemy models. So it's still very good in the Mark IV environment in that you can manufacture different charge vectors that you may not have been able to do. You can also disengage your models with the new movement rules that just came out today is very strong. So even though, I was going to say, even though it's not an offensive spell anymore, it still has a lot of power.
With the new unit rules, also, it makes it so that like it's one guy in the unit can now get to somebody because of TK. Now the entire unit has you, so it definitely changed. It's not like it's I affect this one guy. You could affect 6 with a UA, and everybody's in.
Yeah, I think the tech right now, specifically with Crix, is that Scavras takes what is like Witch Coven. What are the 3 witches that they're called? I don't remember. They but anyway, the 3 of them have Spell Slave, and I think they can all do TK as well. So your Banes just go to weird places, and if you're not expecting it, like they're gonna reach out and touch you. So
Wither Shadow Combine.
That was it. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that Bane Knights and Bane Thralls have been a huge powerhouse for every edition, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
to hear
they're
that
very
story.
strong in this edition. They're awesome. They're great models.
Yeah, I am so excited to go see. I find it funny that May is Winter Guard and Storm Division because I know we have the Winter Corps and these. Was it the just wait
the trenchers for
no?
What
am I? No, what is the? It's not Storm Division. What is it called? Storm Legion.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing, but
it's so
newer.
hard for me to keep track of them. Yeah, but I find it funny that they're getting that. But I'm excited to see them on the table. I really like speculating on what casters that we're going to go ahead and see. I know that from like other stuff. I mean, I'm going down the rabbit hole here. I know with Mage Hunters they said that the House Eloir was going to be in there, so whether it's Thyron or Falsier, I'm excited to see one of those 2 casters. They were like my favorite casters within Ret, so I can't wait for that. I can't wait for June. Cannot wait for June.
Give me Striker back. That's all I want.
And then real fast, because I'm pretty sure everyone saw about the Brine Thralls. Not the Brine Thralls, the Brine Blood, the Trolls. What has everybody's thought about them?
So as historically a Hordes player, I think I said this on our last podcast. I love the fact that the beasts, it's like dress up where you change out their hats or their little backpacks or what they're drinking, and that changes their loadout or their animus. So I'm all about dress up. I love Dollhouse. I am in. Might not this faction, although I absolutely love them aesthetically. I think they're great. I'm just super excited in the direction that Warlock armies are going.
What I really like is almost the whimsical aspect of it. Like it seems a little, I don't want to say out there, but it kind of has like that Grimkin feel where it's like a fairy tale kind of like idea. Like you have a troll swinging around a hammerhead shark. You know, it's just like it doesn't.
They're super flavorful and fluffy, and I absolutely love that. It's like a strong army identity, which was actually kind of a complaint of mine towards the end of Mark III, where I just felt the armies were losing some of what made them unique. So it's so exciting to see Mark IV armies kind of embracing that aesthetic again. I think they look great.
I'm really interested to see what the other Hordes factions will do to have that kind of identity to them, because they talk about Chimera. We have no idea what they're going to go and look like, because it's supposed to be a Legion, idea, right? Because it's, the twins. But I am really excited to see what else they come up with. Now, I don't plan on buying trolls, but I kind of want the heavy just to paint the one with the hammerhead shark. Like that, it just brings me so much joy to look at that model. I get a big old smile every time.
I look at that little doctor guy or whatever he is that has the little...
Oh, the carpenter, doctor, dentist, mechanic.
Oh my gosh.
There are even people on our Discord that were saying, they're just going to glue the hammerhead arm on the model. They're not even going to bother magnetizing it.
I believe it. All right, and then how about all the app updates? Erica, congratulations. The cart is a battle engine again. I hope you're happy about that.
Yeah, long, hard fight there. Shout out to Nate. We did it, man. No, it's good that the Death Knell is a battle engine again. I think that's going to open up a lot for the Grimkin faction. I think we're going to start seeing table time from Warlocks like the Child, who kind of left behind in this Mark IV update. So, yeah, I'm super excited. Bringing the Death Knell to Broker Brawl.
There you go.
And then what about like the other updated rules that they had? Because I know they just updated the rules with unit movement, and we're kind of talking about that earlier before like the podcast started. So I think they finally said is that I feel like I should like actually pull up the wording of it, but I think they finally cleared it up, saying that if you, and you can guys correct me if I'm wrong, if the model starts its charge and goes past something, it doesn't lose that combat action. It still can pass through the thing, so that screening models don't really have as much of an effect anymore. Am I right on that?
Correct. That's my interpretation of it.
Okay.
Yeah. It really incentivizing very far-reaching threats, because if you're not engaged in anything, I can just get the stuff in the back all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see tech like spells like Curse of Shadows or Veil of Mist. I think we're gonna see a lot of aggressive play with those types of spells, because now, you can just go.
Yeah, that the flying models are going to be a problem.
I mean, there's not a lot of them out there, right? Because I know that
There's a whole faction
There's
of
a whole
flying
faction
models,
of
dude.
legions. Crazy.
Oh, geez, I forgot about those. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like so many things now that it's like there's like in First Army, Siege can just give himself fly. The whole Legion faction.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of Mark
Scorn.
1.
Right, Scorn has a lot of flying stuff.
Mark 1, there was Malik Karn. He was a thing.
I don't think he flew, but he flew into enemies, though.
Yeah, he flew into enemies and then ping-ponged off of them.
Yep. I was going to say, no, the ones I was thinking like Griffins as flying things. I know that the Orgoth had the rocks, but I think, they're all the Legion beats. I don't know how I forgot about them, and the Grotesques. Ugh.
Yep.
Oh, and then what about the updated rules so buildings and structures, what is the wording of it? It's that you can have buildings, and once they're occupied, they're a structure, but you can't charge them?
I think they were trying to kind of sync up the rules with how structures and buildings work a little bit, with some differences, like buildings with the certain rules are able to be occupied while structures are not, because structures are considered player owned, but the buildings are not. And then I know like the guard tower specifically has the carapace, but neither can be charged anymore. Structures can't have AoEs spill off of them if you directly hit them.
Okay, so then you can still, so let's say that you have the trench or blockhouse, you can still charge that, but the guard towers you cannot?
You cannot charge the blockhouse.
You can't charge it. So no structures, nothing can be charged.
No structures can be charged anymore. Guard tower cannot be charged. AoEs do not spill off of them. So blockhouse is kind of ridiculous. I just played it the other day. It's kind of ridiculous that this giant 120 millimeter base, when you hit it, AoEs do not leave it. So it's not really incentivized to shoot at it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, and I know that I've only played against one of those, like, on the opponent's side once, and for me to go deal with it, I'd have to go and charge it. Now, not being able to charge it, I think it throws a new puzzle now to figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah.
But then what are the other structures? So it's that, the Menoth Church, I think the Circle has the well, and Infernals have the gate. Is there any other structures?
Don't think yet.
Okay. I can't remember all the I think those are the 4 structures. I can't think if there's any other ones, but
those are the 4 big ones, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's just it's a weird conundrum now. I don't know how to go deal with that unless if you just have like your jacks run up to it or something, or you just have your units run up to it.
The other thing they changed is you can't target the little mans inside with sprays anymore. So the little bit of tech.
Huge.
Yeah, the little bit of tech that armies had to deal with infantry and the towers was removed from the game.
It's gonna definitely incentivize the hunter rule way more now.
And it also just incentivizes people to just be in the guard towers, because it's really hard to be removed from the guard towers now.
Yeah, it is. At AdeptiCon, someone put Iris in one, and it was hilarious because Iris just became 40 health, armor 20 solo, sitting in the middle of the board.
That's not right.
It was ridiculous. It was hilariously ridiculous.
And then, isn't it like if you're up on the tower, you get snipe, or you get like additional range? Is it
only if you're on the top? Only if you're on the top floor. Top floor only.
Do you actually get the snipe roll, or is it like you can get snipe on top of
no?
Like, that bonus?
I think you can stack it because it just says +4 range.
Gross.
I'd have to refresh. I had to relook.
I'm looking at it right now. Yes,
I believe
Rick is right.
Okay, because like that would be like ridiculous for just things like touching everywhere.
Right, and it is a +4, right, Erica?
Yes, +4 as long as you're on the top floor.
Yep. So if anybody that has snipe, it's +7 to your guns.
And then how does sprays work? Does sprays work from the base? Like if you're spraying
Base
outwards?
Yeah, base. You always measure from the base of the tower.
Okay.
They said it's the base. I think the rule said specifically the base point closest to the model that it's targeting.
Okay. You know what the guard towers like now remind me of, just because like the sprays and the guns. It reminds me like StarCraft 2 bunkers. Whenever you throw like the flamethrower guys in there, like the like the
100%.
Like
that's
all
exactly
I can
what's going to happen. I'm going to get me some storm throwers when that expansion drops for Storm Legion, and I'm going to throw 5 of those in there, and they're going to be range 19 because of snipe, and I'm just going to spray everything.
That sounds awful.
It sounds terrible.
And I guess the last thing is that they had lore updates. I haven't gone through everything. I read the Kishtar story, and I started part 5 of Dark Rising. I haven't read the chapter yet. Have any of you guys read any of them?
I have not. I haven't read anything past chapter 4, and of course I read Boris's fluff.
I have not.
Okay. I was going to say, because they talk about, because she's like the Howling Silence. I think they mentioned in there that she got her like throat cut. So like all she does is like gurgle and scream. So that's like, I think the idea about the Howling Silence is that she just makes weird sounds and she's quiet because she can't talk, which I'm like, oh, okay. It's a literal like description of like how she works. So
That's gross.
yeah.
That's crazy.
All right. Well, with that, I guess the last thing that we can like go and talk about, like at least like introduction stuff, AdeptiCon. Do we want to go share about AdeptiCon, or just kind of like point people towards like the Primecast and the More Than Dice interview that you ended up doing? Because Erica, you were on that. You and Andy were on that.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything that's really left to talk about AdeptiCon?
I mean, I think at least like for me, I think I pretty much said all these. We said those resources are out there, but Rick, I think this was your first ever tabletop convention, correct?
Oh, was it?
This was my first big tabletop convention.
So I think we should give Rick the floor as a brand new person going to a big convention and what it was like and doing the PP events.
Yeah, Rick, take it away. So, what was your overall feelings and thoughts about AdeptiCon?
Definitely walking in at first, it was very exciting. Walking into the convention center at first, seeing that big old Space Marine that I would always see the pictures of. Was really cool, so definitely got a picture of that thing. And then once things kind of started to fill up, I underestimated how many people were going to be there. So there's definitely moments of like, this is a lot, and like trying to like find a little corner to stay in for a little bit. But just overall, like all the PP events were run great. The narrative event was wonderful. I really enjoyed that, and I didn't think that I would enjoy narrative play like that, but after playing into it, like, I'm excited for more. I'm ready to make things happen with that and play with a whole bunch of people on a table, and because that was just, it was hilarious just seeing like Crix, Kador, Signar, and Gators on one side of the board, just trying to help each other, and it was a lot of fun. And then I played in the ATC with Erica, Andy, and the Minority Report guys, which was a lot of fun and terrifying considering we went up against the WCT team. But hey, top table. I'm just saying.
That's right, Rick. Hey, Rick, you did awesome, dude. You killed it all weekend. Now
I was so 2 inches. I would have won my game, and then we would have. Now, with that being said, we would have had to go a whole other round if I did. But but it was a lot of fun. The Storm Legion mirror match is terrible.
Like, what happens? Like, does nothing happen, or does everything happen?
Because of how like Storm Legion right now is playing, there's a lot of lightning or electric damage types that are out there. So like Storm Legion trying to shoot each other is not as funny as me shooting somebody else.
Okay, so nothing happens.
Or like really anything happens until like things start getting charged in. But yeah, Athena doesn't like to see Storm Legion's infantry fighting her because her jacks just died to those Storm Guard. Athena shot me dead with because Wolf was standing in the middle of the table instead of 2 inches backwards in the forest.
And when you lose, you don't lose the lesson.
This is true. That's what I said. I said I would never do that again.
Mike, I was actually wanted to ask, did you make it out to AdeptiCon?
Nah, I didn't make it. There were other Nova guys there, but that's a great convention to go to. That's a big boy, so that's a really big convention to be your first going out. That's awesome, man. Congrats.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. I really enjoyed walking the floor for the vendor hall. That was really fun.
It's good to hear too that the narrative went well. Narrative events are some of the most challenging for convention organizers to allow, I guess is what you would say, or host, because they can be really, really great, or they can be like too much. It really depends on who's running it and how it gets run, and even who the players are. So it's awesome to hear it going well at Adepticon.
I really have to shout out Privateer Press for having run that game, because I thought it was very, very smooth. Now, my only real, I guess, viewpoint of that is only that narrative, but it was fantastically run.
So I actually wanted to take a second and ask about these narrative things. Is that because of the narrative scenarios that they're pushing in the War Machine app and the narrative event that they had at Adepticon, I'm almost thinking like this is getting a lot of traction as opposed to talking about, I guess, competitive play. Like the steamroller or stuff. Would you agree with me on that? Like, it looks like there's more of a push.
Yeah. So my comment on it, as somebody that's been playing the game competitively for a few years now. So the current steamroller packet that we have isn't intended for Mark IV, and we can see that especially in lower point games like 75, like 100 points. Okay, it's kind of working, but it still feels like there's something missing.
Mm-hmm.
So objectively speaking, Mark IV is kind of this. It's a new game, like effectively, right? So it's we got some familiar parts to it, right? We're still in our launch year. I don't think the game is entirely complete yet for competitive play. So the fact that the narrative is taking off as well as it is, first off, I'm having a ton of fun doing the narrative stuff too, right? Like the scenarios are great, and I think these types of games are more accessible to a larger player base. But I think for competitive play, we really need to get an updated Steamroller packet. And I think that conventions, maybe for this first year, maybe that should be where the focus is to help grow this game.
Yeah, I think it's that the narrative stuff is hitting beats better, or at least it's drawing back of like, well, what's the objective? What is the MacGuffin that the players are fighting for? And because we're not limiting ourselves to, the zones, I mean, we still have objectives, whether it's like a 50 or 40 millimeter base, but it's actually telling you what that objective is, and you kind of feel more compelled to interact with it. And whether if it's like winning or losing, like you're still enjoying the game.
And it's so fun to see a table that tells a story that's cohesive. And again, I think I was talking to you before, Paul, where it's nice to see tables without the rectangles and circles on it. They look nicer.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I mean, with that, we can kind of move into actually talking about conventions and, planning and going to them and stuff. But I wanted to go and say, you're saying about the 3D stuff. I meant to go and do the shout out earlier. If you are on the War Machine General Discord group, if you go and take a look at the hobby area, there is this guy, Workbench Maniac, and I think also like Tom Wiggins. These two guys have been like posting a lot of really cool like 3D elements to go ahead and add to the tables. I would definitely say if you have an FDM printer or even a resin printer, go and take a look at that. I mean, they have the guy made Iosin terrain.
Oh my gosh. I just started looking at it. I'm sorry. It looks
great. No. Like
wow.
It's so cool. Like yeah. So I'm interested in trying to get this, because if we can get these printed up and have them for the Iosin tables, like that's literally textbook like what the things looked like in the original dioramas that they had. So I have to say, like, to the gentlemen that are working on and doing that stuff, like, your work is not unnoticed, and definitely a big shout out to you guys for that. I can't wait to put that forward for the conventions. But
those are beautiful.
Yeah, no, they are. Like I love the modularity of like the tower where you can like change it to different levels. I'm like, done. I want it.
Wow.
Yeah. So let's go and I guess like talk about conventions real fast, right? So whether it's we can talk about Nova, talk about Adepticon, and Erica, I know that you've been to a lot more conventions. We've done Boca Brawl, we've done Nova, right? So we can kind of talk about all of our experiences. Why should people go to a convention? Like, why should we go to Adepticon or Capticon or any of these places around here? Like, what is the benefit to somebody who is, deep into the water of the War Machine, or those who are maybe just starting to dip their toes into it? And maybe let's start with Mike on this one.
So, I don't want to brag, but I did win the War Machine tournament at Mechanicon in like 2010 something.
Congrats, congrats.
So I think there's a couple different answers on that. It's probably different for everybody, but first off, I think there are different types of conventions. Like I go to Captain Con for very different reasons than I was going to Nova back when I was an attendee at Nova, right? For me, I think the number one reason why you should go to a convention is it's like an adult sleepover. And it allows you to have the greatest medicine that anyone could have that we were deprived of for so long. And that is face-to-face laughter with friends, right? Or opponents or just peers. So to me, that's the number one reason why you would go. There are certainly 100 supplemental reasons. Maybe you are a top-tier competitive player, and that's a qualifier or a place to show the world how strong you are. Maybe you like you were talking about, a cool themed table with a narrative event on it. But I think at the end of the day, what makes it different than playing any of those things at a different place is the camaraderie that you get out of it.
I agree with that. I find that now that we're getting out to more conventions, seeing a lot of familiar faces, it's kind of a reunion. And when I was talking to Emmanuel on Primecast, that's kind of what I shared with him. It's really cool, but I like the adult sleepover analogy. I agree with that.
And then Rick, how about like you going for AdeptiCon for the first time? Why did you choose to go to AdeptiCon as opposed to like not going to any of these conventions in the previous years?
So speaking as like a kind of a new convention goer for myself, a lot of it was just like, for me, it was just time and money. Me having a young one at home that's now kind of old enough that I don't have to like necessarily be home all the time because my wife might be with him or things like that. And it's just like, it's manageable in that way. And then more so like for me for this year, it was just like, I just decided for myself that I'm going to go do more things in general, just because I felt like I've been missing out on them a lot. And this one, AdeptiCon, became very easy for me to go to overall because I happen to have a friend that lives 20 minutes down the street from the convention center. So I just flew in and stayed at his house the whole time when I was not at the convention itself. But I do have to kind of lead into the whole camaraderie thing. For me is I wanted to go meet more people, see new people, other people that enjoy this game that I enjoy. Not that we don't have tons of people at local, but it's interesting to have different types of perspectives from other places, things like that. It's just super interesting for me.
Yeah, I have to say there's definitely a big difference from going to a convention yourself or like watching those like YouTube highlight videos and stuff. You know what I mean? Like they say like the recap. Like I mean, Eric, you did the one for the Privateer press events, but I know that after AdeptiCon, my YouTube feed came up with like a bunch of different people like walking around at the conventions, like this is what to look at, this is what to look at and stuff. And I think that there's one thing about like seeing it on a video and then actually seeing it in person, right? You don't hear how loud the convention hall is when you open up the hotel door, right? Until you're actually there to go see the energy that is there. But not even that, but I think also like go back to the Lord of the Rings tables. I mean, Mike, you can talk about this for the guy that does the Lord of the Rings tables at Nova. Like you could see them on like in pictures and it's one thing, but actually seeing them in person, like, oh my gosh, like it is inspiring to see what people are able to go and do.
There's definitely a level, internally we call it the con spectacle. There are things you're just going to see at a con that you wouldn't see at a friendly local gaming store typically, right? So Devin Moreno runs the Lord of the Rings events, and his tables are iconic, right? You're not going to see tables like that. AdeptiCon this year, they also had some amazing Infinity tables, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's really interesting, and I think that is part of it. The giant Space Marine that you mentioned at the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's a con spectacle. Like last year we had 40K laser tag at Nova, right? That's a spectacle. So that adds to kind of the crazy when you talk about it. And I think another thing that gives you a lot of opportunity to enjoy the con is actually traveling to the con with friends. You know, silly quote, you know, Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings, you know, journey before destination, right? Like enjoying the journey, whether it's a carpool or train ride or airplane ride, excuse me. You know, you get crazy stories with that also. So it's this whole energy, right, that's created by going someplace to share a passion in like a spectacle type environment, right?
So would you say that it would be more of a benefit for people going to these conventions? Because thinking about it, have any of us gone to a convention by yourself, not going with a friend? Because I can say that Boca Brawl and Nova and all those other ones, like I've always was with somebody for that. Do you think it's better to have somebody and try to maybe get a group, whether if it's just like you and one other friend, to try to get a group together?
Personally, yeah, I think so. I had to go to Captain Con by myself last year, not this last Captain Con, but previously, and my travel partner just couldn't go last minute due to some health stuff. And while it was still an awesome trip, and when I got there, it was like a family reunion. The travel experience was definitely missing. It was like a part of my con was missing because I didn't have someone. And then this year, I traveled with a Nova guy and my regular Captain Con guy. And oh my gosh, we took the train and it was awesome. It was like a 6-hour odyssey of silliness, right? Each way. So I think that really put the cherry on top.
Yeah, I probably would not have gone to AdeptiCon if I hadn't known that Andy and Erica were going to go there. Because just having that experience by myself for the first time and then not knowing who's going to be there or whatnot, all those things, it definitely changes the perspective of actually going.
I was going to say, I think Erica articulated it very well on the Primecast. You said something about like it's kind of tribal almost, where it's like you are like if you're by yourself, you're kind of on your own, versus if you're there with a friend or a couple of friends, you kind of feel like you are a bit of a tribe, and then like the War Machine players are like the bigger tribe. You start to meld into that greater community, being able to meet these people, these WTC players, or just these individuals that are local to the area, and this is the one con that they go to once a year, and it's like, oh man, like you're like an hour away from us, like, hey, we do steamrollers or events at our store, and you make those connections. So I definitely think that when you're looking at those, you should probably go and take a look at going to it with another person. Now let's go and talk about how do you save money, right? Because we know that the conventions are very expensive for the tickets. How do you try to budget for that?
Have a friend that's close by.
Well, traveling and sharing rooms, traveling expense and rooms those are the main expenses, right? So going with a group again is the way to go. We oftentimes travel, my buddies and I. We have a meta, right? Like we call it the Mid-Atlantic meta, and we, like you were saying, like we're our tribe. We show up, right? It's the same thing. So that makes it a lot easier if you know there's like 4 to 8 people from your general gaming orbit going. Splitting the rooms and the travel costs is huge.
Yeah, and even just networking with people online, using social media or using Discord, if you're in the area and you're talking with these people or you're doing War Table with them, it's a way to link up too.
Yeah, and some cons will hook you up too, like at Nova and Captain Con. If you do volunteer shifts, you get like your pass comped, for example. Nova also comps rooms for event leads and volunteers at a certain amount of hours. Not every con does that, but most cons will give you a pass if you're volunteering. So that's a great way to do it. Show up like a day early, work a whole day, or just work one shift. Most places are going to need help around like the registration desk or maybe their painting contest or something. That may not be viable for everybody, but that is an avenue to look at.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
The other thing I would say too, this may be more sensitive, but if you are having like a financial hardship scenario, like you should reach out to the tournament organizers or someone that you trust and feel comfortable talking to within the community, because a lot of times players will subsidize or the event will work with you. That's something that it doesn't get talked about enough because it can be embarrassing for people, but like we've all been through some stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're just having an odd year or something like that, something to consider. I always think about when someone loses an army, right? Like how a lot of times people really rally behind them, and I think you'd see the same kind of energy if it got you there and you otherwise couldn't be, assuming you're doing it for the right reasons, right?
Yeah, I feel like the convention scene almost has like a celebration, and we want you to celebrate with us. So I definitely would see that being something that would end up happening. What about for transporting your stuff? Because if you're driving, I think it's easy for us to go transport our models. You transport your models on a plane. Like, how do you do them safely? Do you put them in overhead checking? Do you just, bless off and put them in baggage?
No, you don't do that. You don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. So I guess I'll go first real quick. So I use battle foam bags, and if you go on their website, They're actually, what do you call it? Their dimensions of their bag will fit underneath of the airline seat in front of you and in most overhead luggage. I'm fortunate, right? So I'm the service veteran, so I get to with that early, on to get on the plane. I partake in that whenever I travel with my miniatures. But I would caution folks, if you are traveling with miniatures, obviously, like, bring glue with you, 'cause stuff's probably gonna break in transit. But just pay close attention to the dimensions online and just make sure that they're compliant with either under the seat or in the overhead compartment. Do not check them.
Do not check.
Yeah, don't. I use all magnetized cases for my stuff, and I know that with gargantuans and some of the larger models that may not be possible, but I've never had a problem carrying on with fully magnetized forces. One of the other games I play is Infinity, and they have War Machine sized metal miniatures that are basically robots, right? They're like jacks, and the magnets have always worked well for me. But I think good life lesson anyway from Erica is just to always bring glue with you everywhere. Anyway, Erica, I just had a friend retire from the army, and I gave him a case of super glue. It's just like, for so many reasons you need this,
I normally don't do the early what do you call it, boarding thing, because I don't want to be on the plane for that long. But if I'm carrying my miniatures, absolutely I will take advantage of that.
Yep.
I think that pretty much hits everything, unless we need to go talk about planning for going on conventions, or at least wrapping up. I wanted to actually go and talk to Mike and learn more about Nova itself and a little bit about its history.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nova's been around for a while. It started in 2009. And I was not there, but a gentleman named Mike Brandt, who owned Nova for many, many years, ran it as a charity event to help raise money for his mother, who was a breast cancer survivor, and the proceeds went to the organization that she was working with. So the first thing you have to know about Nova is it has always been and will continue to be kind of zero profit. Everything goes to charity once we hit sustainability.
I never knew that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's totally different than like the AdeptiCon model, for example. That's no offense to AdeptiCon. They should do whatever works for them, and it's working quite well. But for us, it kind of is. We had a very humble beginning that has just grown right over and over and over the years. So we've had some pretty wild stuff. I remember my first Nova actually was the year of the hurricane, which was an earthquake and hurricane at the same time. So that's got to have been like 10 years ago now at this point. The other thing that's unique about Nova is it's all volunteer. There's no employees, right? So again, because we're trying to provide all the money we can to our charitable partners, we do rely on our volunteers to do everything. So we are quite liberal in how we compensate our volunteers in order to make that happen, while still trying to respect the cost of the attendees, which is challenging, right? Also, as everyone's been coming back out into the world, I'm sure you've noticed everything costs more. It's kind of weird. So that conveys over to running a convention as well. So in 2020, I guess, COVID canceled us, right? And right around that time, Mike Brandt, who owned the convention, was hired by Games Workshop to be their director of like events for the world, right? Which is cool. I think even though we're not talking about Games Workshop in this particular podcast, it is relevant that when Games Workshop is involved and communicating and running things with the gaming community at large, more gamers come in, right? Like they are responsible for getting people to play the game, right? So it is a good thing, I think, that they have kind of said, hey, we're going to be active now. And he kind of led the charge on that. So that's pretty cool. But he can't run or own a convention at the same time. So what happened was a group of volunteers, myself included, basically took over Nova. So like I used to run the Infinity events, for example. I was the Infinity guy, the Malifaux guy. Those guys all came together. So all the volunteers that were running the event took over the event, if that makes sense.
There's so many things I wanted to ask. I guess the first one, because you're talking about with like Nova and it getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, how many people are working in the background doing like the social media plugs or working on budgeting or hotel room planning or space planning and stuff? Like how much stuff do we not see?
A lot of stuff. So I'll give you an example. The person who answers the customer service emails right now, she gets between 10 and 100 emails a day. Yeah, and most of them are pretty easy, right? But there's a lot of flow through that takes up a lot of time. So, for example, Erica is running War Machine events at Nova, right? So we get like a fair amount of people who just email customer service at novaopen.com to ask War Machine questions, you know? So we are going to be transitioning to a Discord to help with that because it's just too much of a bottleneck for specific requests like that, and a customer service generalist isn't going to be able to answer them with the same depth as the TO, right?
Right.
So, but to answer your question, there is a core, I'd say, of about 20 people working full time throughout the year to figure out how to get the word out, how to coordinate with vendors, volunteers, all that kind of stuff. And then we surge up to the event, and then the days of the event, we typically have 4-hour shifts that people can sign up for, which gets them a pass into the con. And I guess like registration is a big one. Nova's known for having great on-site registration. So we try not to have a long line. So we will have upwards of 8 people at registration at any one time. Last year we had to have a lot because we had the vaccine stuff going on. This year we don't have that requirement, so that will take some pressure off of the team because that's a lot of logistical work. I know AdeptiCon had to deal with that last year as well, and I'm sure they appreciated not having to deal with it this year.
Erica or Rick, did you have any questions you want to ask?
I thought that was wonderful. I'm good.
It's a lot of work, man, and none of us are getting paid for it. If anything, we're paying for it, right? So, I do want to plug this year, if I may, our charitable partners. We do support So What Else, which is a local food insecurity charity. It helps folks in Maryland, Virginia, DC get meals, which I didn't know that. So like growing up, I was always on reduced lunch, but I didn't know there was people who actually like counted on school lunch for their food. Like that's their only meal that was guaranteed. I did not know that. I'm very privileged. And so that was really eye-opening. So we partnered with them during COVID because that was a huge need in our area. The Maryland, Virginia, DC area has a very big separation between the people who have and do not. And so that was a way that we could partner. We also work with Table War Charities. Table War Charities sponsors families in their needs as they identify one of their kids having autism. So your kid has autism, like, what do you do? So they help you go through that, right, to get the services that you need. And then this year we also added the Mental Health Charity Painters, which I'd encourage you guys to check out, mhcp.org. And they are cool. They're a 503 that just focuses on veterans' mental health. And may or may not be aware, but a significant percentage of our gaming demographic are veterans in some way, especially in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. And so they have kind of a painting consortium on Twitch where they paint and raise money for mental health advocacy and awareness of prevention of veteran suicide and mental health retreats. So what we did change, though, in 2022 for Nova is instead of having like a charitable foundation where everything just goes to that and they distribute it, now what happens is these charities will be present at Nova. They were present last year, and they raise money face-to-face with our attendees, right? So there's more transparency so that people know where it's going, and maybe they can pick a mission that works more in line with how they feel, right? So I just wanted to plug that because it's critical to understand that's what makes Nova different operationally than some of the other conventions.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't even know all that. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's just like the things like you don't know until like, you start like asking and probing some questions about that. So how is Nova, I guess, keeping the momentum forward and what changes? I think, are you at a new hotel this year? I think I heard.
Yes, 2022 was like, hey, we're back. Let's try to run a convention post-COVID, right? We also had a lot of obligations to hotels and vendors and stuff that we picked up, over COVID, right? People who had expected to be at the convention or hotel contracts. So we are too big for one hotel, or had been too big for the hotel we were in, is a better way to say it. So in 2022, we split into 2 hotels, which was a terrible idea, but we wanted to make sure we had enough space for everything. While we were very successful in terms of the number of attendees that came, personally, I felt a little fragmented. And the people that were in one hotel really didn't interact with the people in the other hotel. And there were things going on that people just had no clue even happened because they didn't see it.
I don't want to interrupt, but you're absolutely right about that, because that was the same thing. Was like we were in the one. I didn't realize that on the second floor of wherever that one like restaurant bar was. I didn't realize there's a whole other like stuff that was going on like on that second floor area. Like we just
Yeah,
kept on
and-
going across the street for all like the like what the store was and where all like the big gaming hall was.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think, and I don't know if that was an assumption on our end planning it that people would just think. I mean, we did invest in signage, but I think the reality is too, like you're going to hang where your players are, right? So if War Machine is in one hotel, you're probably going to stay there most of the time, right? So this year we're in the Washington Hilton, which is presidential level Hilton. It literally has a bunker for the beast and a private elevator for the president. And it's a pretty big deal hotel. It allows us to get bigger and have everyone under one roof. It is on average the same price as it was going to be compared to last year's prices. It would have gotten significantly more expensive as our contracts expired to continue where we were. And we do one of the primary calculuses we do when we pick what we're going to do is how does each attendee get impacted financially? So we have two kind of imaginary attendees. We have the solo attendee and we have the buddy attendee, right? Who's split in a room, split in a car versus the individual. So we look at both of those and we try to make sure it's as close to neutral as it can be, right? I mean, obviously everything's more expensive this year, but that's why we pick certain hotels over others. I laugh because I was one of these people that for years was like, they should go to the Gaylord. It's the best hotel. And then when I had the opportunity to go to the Gaylord in that capacity, I was like, oh, it's $400 a night. I don't think our attendees are going to like that, right? So it's just kind of interesting. So yeah, so the new hotel is huge. I encourage you to look it up online. It's just the Washington Hilton on Connecticut Avenue, and we are going to have bigger space for everything. So War Machine, 40K, vendor hall. We added a demo hall this year. Our Hobby Haven area is much larger and is programmed now. So we have paint and takes and speed painting competitions. And those are short little 1 hour things that you can get tickets for. And those directly support the charities. We also have over 100 art classes this year, which is pretty cool. That's like a third larger than last year. And then we also have the largest open form painting competition in the country called the Capitol Palette. And what that means is that there's not a brand restriction. Like Golden Demon is awesome, right? But it's all GW, right? And Golden Demon, you can only be like first, second, third, fourth, right? In an open format, anyone can win gold, anyone can win silver within their own category because they're measured to a universal rubric within that category. And it encourages you to challenge yourself year after year and get better and better and then enter the higher level. So it's a very different style. And that's a very popular thing that happens at Nova as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. The other appealing thing is where Nova is located geographically. So if you're going out with your family or your kids, there's so many museums and parks and historical sites in that area. So even if you just wanted to take a break from the convention, you could, go check out some of the national monuments.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of that, Erica, one of the big things that we as ownership wanted to do, the new ownership is, most of us have spouses and kids, and we wanted to see more family-friendly events within Nova. Nova's always been very family-friendly con. Like, you're not going to see inappropriate stuff, unless you really say, like, all war games are inappropriate. You're not going to see inappropriate cosplay. You're not going to see people acting crazy in like a violent or inappropriate way. We just don't tolerate that. It's just not our vibe, right? It's always been cool and chill. But what we have found is there's a lot of people that orbit our nerd space that like to paint, like to play board games, things like that. So we've grown a lot laterally. For example, we have a 300-person 40K tournament. Like, that's still really big, but I'm not sure that it's as important to get a 320th person as it is to get 20 buddies or family groups that can take a painting course or play. We have a play to win board game library where when you play it, you get a raffle ticket to win the game that you played, right? So those are examples of things that we've tried to expand to. And I think those are also really good for that con spectacle we were talking about. Like we have commander meetups, or we can use the board game thing, the play to win, right? You guys played a whole bunch of War Machine and you're like, dude, I'm done. I want to play a pickup game of War Machine. Let's go grab a beer and let's play Secret Hitler or Catan or whatever, right? I mean, they have a lot more games than that. Don't get me wrong. So you guys are hanging out and one of you guys wins that game. That's awesome, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we actually did that last year. We're so tired of playing War Machine after the second or third day.
Yes, those are big days. I mean, every main event that has, like, I call it a main event if it has a 2-day event. That's a lot. That's a lot of one game. And as much as you love that game, like, your body can only take so much, right?
Yeah,
Your mind can only take so much.
That was actually a takeaway that I think Paul, Andy, Dan, and our takeaway from last year was so our events, if you're coming to War Machine, all right, let's plug the events a little bit. All of our events end between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. So like all of our
That's
scheduled
awesome.
stuff. Yeah. So if you want to go out and grab dinner or you want to go see something or go see a show, we definitely kept that in mind. And then also to allow a spectrum of events for, people who are just coming back or wanting to check out the game. And of course, we're going to have the IG qualify and the more hyper competitive stuff, but there's something for literally for everybody, and everything is going to be supported with awesome prizes and fun. So yeah, come to Nova, guys.
I mean, can I also do another plug? Or would you say, didn't you just say that we're now doing an RPG, like Iron Kingdoms campaign?
Oh, yes. So if you're into role playing, 5th edition D&D stuff, so we have two of our DMs, Tears and Gatorman Pete, who are going to be DMing some Iron Kingdom sessions at Nova. So we're going to get that event built. I need to talk to Owen. I need to get the time slots from the DMs. They're both fantastic, like game running individuals. So stay tuned to take a look at that. We have some really great tables that Paul's been working on. Yeah, we're trying to put on a really good show this year. And, we would love for the community to come out and hang with us.
Yeah, we have actually like private RPG rooms. Well, private in that there are a few RPG tables in the rooms. It's not just like plugged into the corner of a convention hall. So, we want people to feel like they're getting value when they do RPGs. We have competent DMs running things in a quiet and comfortable space, right? Not in the corner of a convention hall. So that's a big thing we try to do with that. It's interesting because every year what people are into kind of changes a little bit. War Machine's got a new edition. We see 40K has a new edition coming out, right? So it's hard to know how your player base is going to adapt to that. But I think in general, like the hardcore players, the tournament level players, we'll call them, right? They're married to that game. They're going to continue with it. And it's just a matter of what do the tertiary people do. And that's where I think the narratives can be really strong, or like you mentioned, RPGs, lateral events within the same universe that people love, using the same models that they love with the same people that they talk to. Those could be really strong. So we look for that also. You notice with 40K, with the new edition coming out, we're still going to have a 40K tournament. And you know what? We might lose some people to that. They might go narrative instead. And I imagine War Machine will be a similar thing. It really just depends on what people like about it and what is going on and being advertised. You mentioned how Privateer Press is really leaning into the narrative style. So if that's what people come to expect from the conventions and that's what they're hearing their friends talk about, that's what they're going to want to see, right?
No, for sure. Absolutely. Was there anything else that we wanted to plug in for Nova? Erica, did you have anything we need to go and say?
The only thing I would say is if you're considering, coming to Nova just to get your tickets early, we may shuffle some of the attendance on our events. So we're seeing more of our casual narrative stuff starting to sell more. So I think we're gonna shuffle some of those. Yeah, we're tried and true. We'll be at the Broker Brawl. We'll be at Siege Invitational, Liberty Brawl, and Nova. That's what we are confirmed for this year. So
And Sussy Scuff?
Oh, and the Susquehanna Scuffle. Yeah, I'm going to start pushing that after Broker Brawl. I'm going to wait for Broker Brawl to conclude, and then, we'll start pushing out Sussy Scuff in May.
I think I was joking around whether it's going to be Seth or Pete or Rick, actually, as well. We were, like, talking with them. It's like, we'll be Team Dad, and we're going to wear jerseys with our kids' heads on it.
And we're gonna wear like really tall socks.
And Crocs.
Yes.
I just want to say, hey, big thanks to Mike for coming on and talking about Nova. We're really excited. So it's Stellar War Machine. It's our first year running something at a convention. So we want to do right by the community, and we're hoping that it'll be a successful year. We're really excited. So thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you. And I want to say, Erica, your energy, your whole crew. I mean, War Machine's been a regular thing at Nova for many, many years. It's been huge. It's been not huge. But one thing that I noticed big time is the energy that you guys are putting into making this event unique and memorable, right? And efficient and organized. So that is very noticeable as someone who spends a lot of their time babysitting. And that's no offense to any of my leads. There's just a lot going on and everyone has a life. But you guys are really making your attendees front and center, and that's something I noticed as someone who organizes it from the back end. So there's some insight from the other side.
Oh, thank you.
No, I appreciate it. That's nice.
I think your players will really notice it.
I know I do.
Mike, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Rick, did you have any words that you want to go say before we head on out?
Privateer Press, fix the mechanics. Which is good.
All right. Well, I guess with all that, we'll go ahead and catch you on the next episode, and we will see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys.